Okay, there's a ton of iguanas here. This gate is locked, but they're easy to pick. I know there's iguanas back there. Anyway, over there is where the elementary school is that I used to go to. I'm going to make a video of that one of these days, just to show you how things have changed. Although this neighborhood is basically the same neighborhood that I grew up in, it's nothing like it was. The school that I went to has been remodeled, and it's surrounded by a 6-foot chain link fence. When I was a kid, there was no fence. And the field had about a 3.5-foot tall chain link fence that had about 4 pass-throughs. You could easily get in and out. So back then, it didn't feel like you were in prison. Plus, the doors and the windows were always open because there was no air conditioning in the school. Today, of course, after the remodeling, the windows don't even open anymore. This whole neighborhood, like this house over here still has it, that White House, with the Trump signs, of course. They still have the glass or jalousie windows, but none of the others do anymore. They've all been remodeled like this tacky thing. I mean, seriously, what is it with these concrete slabs, fake grass, and black, white, and gray? I don't see what the fascination is. There's a few run-down places. There's still a few. There's still some trees in some places. This was a very inexpensive neighborhood. This neighborhood that I'm in is called Westwood Lakes. And it's named that because of the 2 rock pits that were dug, and then the land was used to build houses. And there's a canal that connects the two. There's a canal that used to connect to the canal in the middle of the road here, which was taken out by 1978. And again, 1957, if you wanted to buy a house here, they started at $7,500. That was the total price. The idiots today that buy these crummy little houses start at $400,000. $400,000, which means that the $8,000 or more a year property tax you pay is more than the entire house cost when it was brand new. And when these homes were brand new, they were in good shape. They weren't termite eaten and rotten and patched up and rigged with all kinds of illegal work like they are now. Let's see. And all this traffic, which never ends. It's like an endless traffic jam over here. Anyway, so let's see if we can get over here now. Next to my neighborhood is what's left of the old neighborhood. There are 2 sections of the old neighborhood left. These sections are what are known as Horse Country and Miller Road Estates. Now, Horse Country is where most of my friends used to live. And beyond Horse Country used to be agriculture. There was a lot of agriculture here, surprisingly. A lot of farm fields, but most of what we had here were groves. We had mango, avocado, lemon lime, orange, and then the tropical fruits like guava and papaya. There are a lot of different fruit crops that were grown out here. This area is called Horse Country because most of the people that lived here, well, even to this day, they would breed horses. And then you also had stables and riding areas and so on. Because the lots here are 2.5 acres and up, this meant that you could also have things like churches. And there have been churches here for many years. There are still churches being built to this day. You see they left the gate open. That's nice. Under this turnpike, when I was a kid, there was no road here. This was just dirt. There was a tiny little bridge that was only about 48 inches wide, that you could bike across or ride your horse across. And the road used to end right around here. There was a turn, and then you went that way. Drainage improvements. I don't know what they're doing now, but anyway, this is a really old, but really Florida neighborhood. Let's see. There's an awful lot of traffic that goes this way. But what else is new? Okay. Let's see. Is it safe? Probably yes. Even though the light is red, nobody's coming. That's a good sign. Now, this over here, this used to be a house. We actually knew the person that used to live here. They used to have a barn and a house which has been stripped out. This lot, as well as a couple of more, were bought by this church. The church used to be in my neighborhood, which is Westwood Lake. So it was over there by the power lines. The building is still there, and it's ironically a school. But you can see here, they have a school. Looks like they have a water slide. Well, at least that's good. And I believe that kids, if you have a religion, they should have a school. So that way you can send your kids there and learn about your beliefs or whatever else they teach them. It can't be any worse than public school. And I see they're taking part of the field and building more of the school. So it's obviously a thriving business. And churches in general are a thriving business. This place is full of them. Every one of the lots on this main road is either a plant nursery or a church. There's another one, ELIM. He is not here, for he is risen. Well, the only thing rising around here is your taxes. I see they're over there, got their equipment, filling in the slab. Looks like they dug up the road to put in utilities. And they have a creative use of rocks over here. I see the nursery is emptying out. That's kind of interesting. This used to be the sod nursery, I think. Was it Action Sod? There's the Action Sod truck. But anyway, this might be the Lighthouse Nursery. Yeah, that's what it is. So they're closing up. So what'll happen, they'll either start another nursery or probably build another church. They took this lot and they turned it into sort of a recreation lot. Now, because people are piled up so badly in Miami, they live in these garbage apartments and condos, a lot of times what they'll do, they have their parties at nurseries. Now, it's really strange. A plant nursery, you wouldn't think of as a party place, but there's really not that much open space here, other than the county parks and the few agricultural lots that we have. Now, churches, obviously, they have a lot of open space, and one of the reasons they do that is because a church is tax exempt. So in a place like Miami, where property is extremely overvalued, you're going to spend $2 or $3 million for a piece of property like this. You're going to be paying $200,000 a year in property taxes. But if you have a church, you pay zero. Now, obviously, you don't get any garbage pickup or any of those residential services. Well, look at that mansion. But on the good side, I don't think it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to get your trash picked up. Well, there's the Action Sod Nursery. Oh well, seems like they're expanding. I remember this place, they used to have a little trailer and a tent. Now they got all kinds of stuff. I see they're putting in pavers. They're getting fancy. These nurseries used to be mostly just mom and pops. Some of them are wholesale, but now they're starting to become more retail. Now here's an example of one that they've taken a fruit stand and they turned it into a makeshift restaurant. See? Barbecue Ranch. People come here at night, they load this place up. It's really popular. Now, I've had people complain, well, look at all the stuff they're building here. I'd rather see them do this than load this thing up with more apartments. We have way too many apartments that are way overpriced. And whenever you load this place with apartments, traffic gets terrible. You can see over there, they've been doing some land work. They're using that skid steer. Got the door open on that. I think somebody's living in that camper. That thing's been sitting there for a few days. I guess they do it in cycles. The gate is open. Oh well. But again, as long as this property is agricultural, they don't have to pay any tax. Or they pay very little. I think for each acre, it's only a few $1,000s of taxable value. Is it 4,000 or 5,000? So you might pay, I don't know, $200 per acre per year for your property tax. This property over here is the same way. It's basically just a pasture. Now it's nothing but ragweed and garbage because they don't actually mow it, they don't maintain it. They just bulldoze it every few months. So it's nothing but weeds. There's a couple of horses there. Yeah, they look like halfway decent horses. But there's nothing really here good to eat. And that's the original marl soil and rocks. So without improvement, it doesn't do too well. Now, we have reached the limit of horse country. Now this is what we call, well, Miller Heights, or over there's Royale Green. They got a bunch of names for this place. But really what it is, starting in the 1970s, they opened this area up to develop. I remember when they were building these apartments and condominiums. There was actually something, I think it was on Channel 4, they were showing all of the shortcuts that were taken, the poor quality construction. They were falling apart when they were new. And ever since then, you can see they're constantly patching cracks and doing repairs and so on. So when it comes right down to it, some things never change. But it is ironic to see this old wooden fence, got some wooden poles with barbed wire and weeds. This is what our whole neighborhood was. Then over there you see the apartments. And once you cross the road, you go into the current development state. The traffic also does build up quite a bit when you go that way. People are coming and going. Here it's pretty safe. You can ride your bike. There's not that many cars coming in and out of the side roads. But Miami's gone through several stages, and what a lot of people don't realize is that today's funny money stage actually had its foundations in the 1980s. This horse country that you see now was relatively cheap. You had normal people that lived there. But in the 1980s, the price of properties went up. When I was a kid, you could buy a house in horse country for $40,000, a decent little house. By the late 1980s, they had gone up to $300,000. How could that be? Well, it was all because of drug money. Miami became a center for drug smuggling, especially cocaine. And of course, cannabis. It started with cannabis, and it went to cocaine. So, that is one of the things that people kind of forget about. But they say cocaine built Miami. Miami was built on the square grouper. All kinds of sayings. Now here's something left from the really old days. The Southern Belle Yard. And you can see here, it's still here for now. The other one they sold, and they bulldozed it, and they turned it into a medical office and apartment building. But this one still says AT&T. But you can tell it's not maintained, it's beat up and run down. So I would assume that in the next few years, they will sell this, and they will build a mega apartment complex here. That is, unless the economy takes a crap. And that'll just slow it down. Because as soon as the economy takes a crap, the Federal Reserve has 20 trillion, yes, trillion, in quantitative easing waiting to buy all the bonds and artificially lower interest rates. As soon as the stock market or real estate market starts to drop, the Federal Reserve is going to drop rates down to zero, and pump the market to the stratosphere. That's what they've been doing for the last couple of decades. Prickly pear. Now, when I was younger, like I said, back in high school, I always wanted to get a place, had some land, like out here in horse country. But then when you go out to this neighborhood and you see what they did to it, I was like, oh man, is this the future of Dade County? And if you don't know, Dade County is the county that Miami is in. In the 1990s, they renamed it to Miami-Dade County. Just like the college I went to is called Miami-Dade College. At that time, it was called junior college or community college. And that's actually one of the most interesting things is how they change names. For example, one of the dumpiest parts of Miami was called Lemon City, but now they call it Midtown. It's still the same crime-ridden hellhole. It's just a lot more packed and a lot more expensive. So it's all in the way they name it. Oh look, they're putting up some of these traffic cameras. It's another one of their money-making schemes. And everywhere there's a school, they're going to be putting in cameras to try to write people tickets if they go more than 15 miles an hour when the school zone light is on. That's one of the reasons that my truck has a license plate protector to keep it from being damaged when I'm towing a trailer. Just push the button and the license plate drops out of sight, and if you make a mistake, you don't have to worry. In my opinion though, getting a ticket without a police officer serving it to you should be illegal, because how do you know when you're getting one? They mail it to you, it gets lost in the mail. Next thing you know, you lose your license. You get arrested because you're driving on a suspended license you didn't even know about. Totally ridiculous. But it's par for the course down here. Now, when I was a kid, I started to see the amount of money just blow up in some areas. That was the 1980s. Even in our neighborhood, Westwood Lakes, we had people, they started buying these new cars. They were even exotic cars. We had a neighbor had a Ferrari, very similar to the one that was on Magnum PI. In that neighborhood, expensive jewelry and furniture, designer clothes, and all this other crap that was just overpriced that we never saw when we were kids. When I was a kid, you were the hot shot in the neighborhood if you had a Schwinn Stingray bicycle or a go-kart. So that was really something different. Now, we used to joke about the drug dealers, and eventually government figured it out. They started arresting some of these people, raiding some of these drug operations, and over time the heat got to be too much, so the drug dealers sort of faded away. What finished off the 1980s bubble was Hurricane Andrew. Oh look, a cyber junk. The 1980s bubble ended with Hurricane Andrew. All those overpriced properties crashed in value when the market was flooded with people wanting to get the heck out of here. And that's actually a pretty good thing when you think about it. So I was happy about that. And that's when I started looking around, see if I could find a deal. They paint this building about every 5 years. It's always peeling. Just poor quality, I guess. Must be a daycare back here with all those posts. Yeah, it's a daycare. So what ends up happening to a lot of people, they get caught up in that FOMO or fear of missing out, and then they get to the point where they just jump on the bandwagon. Everybody wants to buy the overpriced property because they don't want to miss out. Well, when the hurricane hit, that ended, which was a good thing. And that's when one of my friends, the one that's actually moving out now, they were able to get a good place to live out there in Redlands, which is our other rural area, for less than $100,000. That was going for almost $300,000 before Andrew. There were a lot of good deals here. And that was basically one of the last opportunities that we had. Now, we did have another opportunity. And of course, you probably know that happened in 2008. But 2008 bubble was very different in many ways. And I'll tell you why. These people just drive me nuts. They don't move. What a bunch of losers. Anyway, in 1992, after Andrew, the market tanked. Insurance companies went into panic mode. It became impossible to buy anything with a mortgage. So people started doing cash deals. But there's only so much cash around. Now, a lot of people got cash by simply leaving the area. The insurance company bought them out. They took the money and ran. And that was it. But for some people, there was actually another option. And that was the option of just taking the money, fixing it up, hanging around for a while. A lot of money went out from the hurricane. So it was only a matter of time before someone figured it out and the investors started to pop in. And by the late 90s, prices started going up. Not very much, but a little bit. They still hadn't reached the maximum though. What really got prices going was in 2001. After the bombing of the World Trade Center, the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates to 1%, and that allowed the real estate market to bubble up with easy money. As you probably know, all money through the banking system comes from the inflation of so-called assets. Those so-called assets, the biggest ones are real estate. So by inflating real estate, banks could create money out of nothing. But of course, there's only so many people that you could sell overpriced real estate to. So what they ended up doing, they had to expand their market. And they did this by making it easier for people to borrow money. And this happened under the Bush administration. The second Bush, not the first one. Not the one that came after Reagan, but his dim-witted son. And that genius, along with Easy Alan Greenspan, the Federal Reserve Chairman, allowed the banks to leverage up, loaning out tons of funny money, just unlimited amounts of funny money. And what eventually happened? Well, the market became so overinflated, people were no longer able to pay, the economy started to soften. Now, inflation was getting high because the gas prices had gone up. They were over, $3, $4 a gallon. The Federal Reserve decided to raise interest rates. Now, Easy Al was no longer the leader of the Federal Reserve. That had actually become Benjamin Shalom Bernanke, a complete idiot. This man prided himself as being a student of the Great Depression. Well, his solution was simple. Easy money for the wealthy. You have to remember, and I'll explain this probably in more detail. When I was a kid, there was a lot of inflation. Then, when the Federal Reserve tried to stop the inflation, it had a big crash. Jimmy Carter had replaced the Federal Reserve Chairman. Now, I know they had one guy, his name was Arthur Burns. No, it wasn't Burns from The Simpsons. It was another guy named Burns. He actually looked like the current Fed chairman. But what they did they had, Paul Volcker, who was a tall guy, I think he was about my height, real tall, smoked a big cigar. I think he recently died in his 90s. And it's another video I want to make, because a lot of the well-connected people, whether or not they eat well or whatever, they tend to live into their 90s. People that are rich and don't have to fight for their life live longer than the people that do. But anyway, Paul Volcker, or what they called him, Tall Paul, he was known for allowing interest rates to rise. Now, market rates are not set by the Fed. They're set by the market. They're set by economic conditions. The thing is, the government has an unlimited appetite for borrowing. So what ends up happening, the Federal Reserve intervenes in the bond market. And if you don't know what bonds are, they're actually government debt. They're just IOUs. All the government debt is a bond. It's not like the government just prints the money and gives it out. Oh, no. All money is created by the banks. And the banks then use those so-called assets they create to buy government bonds. This is the reason why the government debt can never go down and will never be allowed to go down. Because as soon as it does, all these parasite billionaires are going to lose. And you know they can't lose. They don't care if you or I lose, but they just don't want to lose themselves. They're selfish. They're disgusting. Look at the iguana. Hello, Mr. Iguana. Look at the iguana. Yep. Good thing you're too small. You would have been big. I probably would have grabbed you. Let me see if I can cross this without getting run over. Yeah, I think I can. Okay, let's see. That's good. So, basically, when it comes right down to it, the system is a debt-making machine. It has to keep creating debt forever. Otherwise, it implodes. Here's another Presidente supermarket. This is the one that's far away from me. There's a little shopping center. There's the daycare for old people, which is kind of sad in some ways, but I guess it's better than a nursing home. I don't remember ever seeing adult daycare when I was a kid. I mean, look at this. Adult daycare. Huh. That is crazy. Hair salon, excursions. There's a lot of people in there. I wonder who pays for that. Most likely Medicare or the government in some way. Miami's industry is very dependent on government money, whether it's hospitals, nursing homes, doctor's offices, whatever. Anyway, let's see. There we go. Hi. Yeah, this is one of the most interesting things in my opinion. Once you understand how the system really works, you begin to wonder why nobody else has been complaining about it. It's still on, that's a good sign. So anyway, and by the way, this is Lakes of the Meadow. This was a neighborhood that got really badly damaged in Hurricane Andrew, even though Andrew didn't hit this area as bad as even my neighborhood. It's a little bit further inland. Hurricanes can be very interesting, because when they hit land, they can deviate in different directions. You could have total destruction in one area and hardly any 5-10 miles away. Miami's a really big place. Although compared to the rest of South Florida, it's pretty small. Well, with the Federal Reserve artificially pumping the market by manipulating interest rates, it's almost impossible to know exactly what the market rate should be. And this is where you run into problems. So people are going to go, well, fundamentals this, fundamentals that. But there's nothing fundamental about funny money. It all comes down to who's going to take the loss. Are the greedy bastards that created the problem going to take the loss? Or is it everybody else that's going to take the loss? Oh, they repaved this lot. Anyway. Okay. Take the shortcut. One of the great things about the old bicycle. You can take shortcuts. Although I've taken this one with a car more than once. All right. Anyway. It's amazing to me that the average person never really thinks about how the system works. And I've had people say, well, Rick, you complain a lot about this system, but there's nothing we can do about it. We can't destroy it. It's not like we can go over there and turn the lights out on the Fed and say, okay, you're all going home. Makes you wonder why the Fed has never been directly attacked. A lot of people have been attacked. Nobody ever touches them. They seem to be immune from everything. Now, again, there is a way that we can fight the system, and I've been fighting the system my whole life. And that's actually very simple. All you have to do is just don't go into debt. That's it. If you refuse to go into debt, say, no, I'm not going into debt, you basically starve their system, because now there's no way that they can get any money out of it. How are you going to get money out of the system when people don't spend money? If you don't spend money, you can't get it out of the system. It's that simple. So, if you want to destroy the system, just don't spend money in it. Only spend the money you have. That will cause the system to balance. But every time somebody takes out a car loan, mortgage, college debt, or whatever, that makes them stronger. It wouldn't matter if the government constantly went into debt. If nobody else went into debt and people only bought what they needed, they would limit their income. It would be harder to tax them. No mortgages, these homes wouldn't be worth half of what they're worth, which means that property taxes would be nothing. If you have an exemption of $50,000, the house may be worth $50,000. It's not going to be worth $500,000. Nobody has that kind of money. All that value comes from debt. Whether it's a first mortgage, second mortgage, home equity line of credit, or whatever, it's all debt. That's it. No debt, no inflation. Another mango tree. So it's important to understand how the system works, so that way you can work against it. But most people don't want to. That is definitely an issue. I always go around the corner because you never know who's going to be there. So with that being said, what else can you do? You can educate people. Today, it's easy to go online, see how the system works. There's another one of those Ciarella trees. They are everywhere. You can talk to people and say, hey, did you know this? Did you know that? When I was younger, I couldn't find any of this out. The only way that I learned about this is when I was in college. I think it was in my first year. One of those useless requirement classes they make you take, which I don't remember if it was called social environment or what it was. I need to find my old college transcripts. But what it came down to sort of like a civics kind of class to explain how things work. And interestingly, my professor was named Manuel Mendoza, who was also a producer of the very popular TV show Que Pasa USA. So that was interesting in itself. Look at that. Got a little open space. I guess you can't get to it. Got the school over there. I think this is the middle school they talked about. Is that the Doolin or whatever? No. It's another one. Bowman. Yeah, Doolin. That's what it was. This is the school that was referenced to with those little plaques that they put in the sidewalk. Bowman, Ash, Doolin. That's the one. I know because they have the goofy-looking ball-shaped columns. They built this back in the 90s. They recently painted it, did some changes. You know, they spend millions in these schools and nothing really improves. They just put a taller fence and lock everybody out. I mean, we pay thousands of dollars a year for these facilities and we can't even get in there to use the field anymore. Got everything fenced off. Totally wacko. Anyway, I see they're cutting the grass. Yep. So, let's see. Oh, this is rough. Right. Yeah, there's the elementary school, the Bowman. Yeah, so that one was a Doolin. That's what I remember. The sidewalks are crazy. Yep, school is out. Miami-Dade County giving our students some crap. Indoctrinate them. There's a scooter. I do see a lot more people riding than there used to be. This is a really depressing looking building. I mean, look at that, it looks like a jail. It's a shame the kids have to go to school in a place like this. Unreal. When I was in school, they all had windows. Not anymore. Anyway. Well, it looks like they got some construction going on at the park. Got the Bobcat and the, looks like a dump truck. Must be doing the baseball field, maybe? I don't know. None of these people ever speak English. That's the funny thing. I'm doing something. Alright. I don't know what they're doing. All are obese too. Every one of these guys got a big old gut. I guess that's a soccer field. I'm not sure what the heck that is. Interesting. There's always money being spent around here. I guess they're getting ready to put in some new sod. That's probably what it is. Yep. Anyway. Usually it's one of the commissioners spending our tax money. There we go. Roberto Gonzalez. Look at that crook. One of many. Everyone in the county commission, they get in there so they can get money under the table for their friends that do development. They can extend the urban boundary line until it reaches Everglades National Park. And then I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe they'll just start selling off all the county property and developing that. Knowing this place, I wouldn't doubt it. I can see the yellow sign for Fresco y Mas. This is different than the way I went the last time, but it's still the same destination. Anyway, as you know, tomorrow morning, I'm going to have my live at 8. And there's a few things I'm thinking about adding to it, changing from it. But if you take the time to watch it, you know, give me some hints, some ideas. Be kind of interesting. There's another one of these trees. See, this is the Sierrella or Hakote. That's what it looks like. And then over here, there's a mango tree. This is a mango leaf. Has that unique mango smell. Here's more mango branches. These are all areca palms. So, one good thing about this place, there's a lot of different trees. Got some bananas, more mangoes. I can smell mangoes everywhere. This looks almost like, looking like a fig tree. Oh, here's some Cavendish bananas. These are the dwarf Cavendish. Quite a few of them. Anyway, there's the old Fresco Mas. I could cross, but I'm not going to take a chance. Yeah. Oh well. Let's see. Maybe I should. I might. Give me a head start here. One good thing about the bicycle, no one's going to give you a ticket. I see a lot of bicycles here. There's somebody over there. Another bike over there. There's a lot of bicycles. Oh, look, one of those lizards, the red-tailed lizards. Plenty of lizards, there's fruit. I guess if you were desperate, you could survive on lizards and fruit. And here we go, through the obstacle course parking lot and to the Fresco Mas. I'm not going to bore you with the talk on the way home, unless I get a good deal, which I probably won't. I mean, I was getting good deals from here for about 3 weeks, but now it seems like there's just no more deals, so we'll see. Anyway, hopefully it all goes well. And I hope you're having a great day, and I'll catch you later.